don't connect to the audio. And please make sure you connect the audio first so that you can hear me or you can speak through your microphone. Okay. Then just let's start today's topic. And if you see my browser, then this is the result. I will introduce you can see here is like arbitration systems which have different block, and they are sidebar content, and they are actually I implement 2 pages. One is e-commerce and second is projects. So you can click it to show different page. So this is today's result, and today I will show you. So how do we do it? Let's continue with our slide. So what you will know today is how to build something similar like a demonstration like UI with ZK components. Then you will know how to reuse the view snippet with template. And you will know how to apply responsive design with Bootstrap or with ZK. Okay. And you can also know how to create a custom components with Zool, and you can know where to download this whole project, and there's the online demo. And there are other responsive tips, but I won't tell too much about others. You can just check the response, those small talk. So the first is about, I think everyone knows Bootstrap. If you don't know that, you can just Google Bootstrap. I don't need to. I don't need to introduce Bootstrap too much. Okay. Someone knows how to records. Let me check. Okay, about the records, I will record this whole video in our Zoom cloud, so you don't need to record by yourself. We will later share the video to yours. Okay, so this is our outline today, and the first topic is about the Bootstrap. I don't introduce too much, but I will mention some key features when I introduce the related features I implement in this system. So if you don't know Bootstrap too much, please go to read the Bootstrap documents. I won't introduce the Bootstrap too deep, but I will tell what its features is for specific features. So first is about the responsive design. The responsive design is very popular because there are lots of devices in the world, including mobile device and desktop device. So for ZK, in the component-wise, in the component level, the ZK component can help you to deal with this. So a component can change itself. For example, if you use the daybox, then it will show a pop-up when you at desktop browser. But if you are in a mobile browser, it will show a scroll bar, not scroll bar, a larger number on the bottom of your mobile device. So you can scroll to select the numbers, the days, and the months. So it will render itself at different devices according to your browser. So it's at component level, but at page level. Sometimes you want the page. For example, this sidebar, you want to make it smaller when the screen size becomes smaller or narrower. But this is not a component know how you want to do. So at page level, or maybe even you want this sidebar to disappear at certain width. This is not a component can know. So you need to decide by yourself, or even it's decided by a designer, not by engineer. So there are more things. For example, the layout, the color, the padding, the size, the font. So there are many things to determine, and it's not a pure technical decision. So you need a designer. Usually you need a designer or someone to determine what a page should look like in different sizes of device. This is not automatically decided or cannot be automatically decided by ZK component itself, because component is just one part, just one small part of this page, but whole page is composed by component. So component doesn't know how a page look like. It just know itself. So you need someone or someone like designer that they need to design first. For example, this is our design for this system. So you can see when the pages becomes narrower, this is wide page, then middle, then becomes smaller. So you can see there are box in the page, and you will shrink its width, or you will change its layout, and the sidebar will become narrower when it's smaller. So we first need to decide the layout. It's decided by a designer. So it doesn't come for free, or it isn't determined by component itself. Okay. The next is about navigation. We divide the page into the typical layout. There's a sidebar on the left-hand side, and there's a content. Okay, so the sidebar contains a navigation bar. So there are navigation items. When you click these items, you will change the content accordingly. And now we have two content. One is e-commerce rule, one is project rule. So for the simplicity, we don't implement the whole page into one rule. We separate into several rules. The first is about I separate the sidebar into independent rule, and the whole sidebar and content I will put it into one rule. Okay, and when I click an item here, and I will dynamically change the content here the content. So let me show you the code that how do I implement this. The first page. Okay. Now you can see this is the index of this administrating system index. So you can see here this is the main page, and it's very simple because I reduce its complexity by separating into different page. So first I use the apply. It's a shadow component. The shadow component means it doesn't itself doesn't render any. It determines how we're going to check itself component or inject the page. So first I separate the sidebar into a different separate page. So I inject here. So this is the apply, and this is the content. And I apply the content fluid. This is the Bootstrap CSS class. It's not just from ZK, it's the Bootstrap. It's the base that if you want to apply Bootstrap grid system, you need to put this as its container. So I'll describe it later. So now you can see I split this whole page, the main page, into two parts. One is sidebar and another is the content. The content I also insert this content page with apply, but it's not a fixed value, so it's not fixed path. It's determined by a navigation model. The navigation model remembers the path. Okay, so when I click a sidebar, an item on the sidebar, I will switch the content of this content URL, and so ZK will load it and to switch the content. So the sidebar is just like I use the navbar to implement this sidebar. So you can see I will create the items, create item based on the menu list. So the menu can be constructed by a database or from any other data source. So it dynamically constructs the sidebar with templates. I will leave the detail for you because it's just a component like a for loop to loop the whole menu list and render the whole menu list as a navigation items. So you can check the detail later, but you just know we have a menu list here, sidebar. Yeah. And there is a menu list. It's a list of menu. And you can see I will just bind it to here, menu list. And so the shadow component also can accept parameters. So you can see this is the parameter name and this is parameter value. So you can pass this value into its template to iterate the menu list. So you can pass this, so it's menu item, you can load the menu item here to render the whole menu list as a sidebar. So the result will like this. You can see here, it's menu list. So when I click the menu here, I will invoke a command. So you can see here is an unclick and it will invoke a navigate content, and it will pass the menu, the current menu, you click into the command. So let's check the command. The command navigate here, you can see it's just a method, but with a notation command. And I pass the menu here. The menu is just an object, a data object that represents the current menu. So I will get it if the menu target place is not blank, because there are some blank items. So I will set the content URL. So how does it work? Conceptually here, I will create a navigation model. This is just a Java object. It's not a ZK UI object. So just create a navigation model. This model has a property called content URL. The content URL will be the current content URL page. So when I click the navigation items, it will send the content URL. It will set content URL to this object, and this object's content URL is bound to apply template URL. So when I set it and I notify the change, then ZK will reload this template URL and will switch the page. So for example, if I click the project.rule, I click the project and its corresponding content URL is project.rule, I will set it into navigation model. And I tell ZK to reload, notify change. So ZK, the apply component will reload this URL and change the content. So this is the concept. So you can see the implementation here. I click the navigation item, it will call the method called navigate. I will set the menu item, I click, and I get its target place. In the target path, currently, if I click project, and it will be there is a project.rule. So I will set the content. So this is navigation model. And you can see the navigation model is just a model that contains the current URL. So you can also implement something like this model. You can create other properties you like, maybe the current user preference or something other state that you need to store for this page for navigation. But in my case, I just store the current content URL. So when I call this navigate, I will set this content URL to change to the target path, and then I called my utility to pause notify change, to tell user that to tell the ZK that this navigation model's content URL changed. And if you see the main page here, the main page will bind this URL into bn.navigationmodule.content URL. Okay, so you can see this. When I notify change, this will change and will change the injected page at the main page. So at first, this is e-commerce. If I click the project item, then you will set the path to project.zoo and notify change. So the content will change because the ZK will load the project.zoo. Okay. So you can see here, I separate each part into a separate project. For example, a separate zoo. For example, this is e-commerce. This is project. So there is an e-commerce / e-commerce.zoo, and there is a project. Okay. So there are two different paths like this, here and here. Okay. So this is how I implement the navigation. The next topic is about responsive design with Bootstrap. The Bootstraps, there is a grid system that we basically rely on this grid system to achieve our responsive design. So the grid system is implemented by applying CSS class to ZK components. So its basic concept is, I don't introduce too much into Bootstrap. You can check his document. But basically, he separates the whole page into rows. So you can separate a page into rows like this. So for example, I can check my page. I can separate my page with 6 rows. In each row, it is divided into 12 columns. So you can decide one component inside this row need to consume how many columns. For example, according to our previous design, the designer decide, there are the first component consume 12 columns and 12 columns, and third row it consume 7 and 5, and fourth one is 5 and 7, and then the last one is 12. So this need to be decided first. It's a designer's decision. It's not a technical decision. So the real page look like this. So we decide, okay, the first title just consume the whole row, so it's 12 columns, and then there are 4 boxes. The 4 boxes consume 12 columns, and here there is a chart. We use 7, and here we use 5. We use 5 and 7 and 12. So this is the design, and how do we implement? Okay, we implement by adding columns, by adding row class on our div. So let's check into, for example, let's see the e-commerce. Let's make it larger. So you can see here, this is the Bootstrap row, and you can see here we apply CSS into a div. So you can see here, the column means, if you don't specify the number, that means it occupies 12 columns. So COL means the columns. So you decide this div will consume the 12 columns. And this is another page, so I describe it later. Here, this is the third row. According to our design, we split into 7 column and 5 column. So I used column MD7 and MD5 to split into 7 column and 5 columns. Then the next row is 5 columns and 7 columns. Then the second one is 12 columns. Okay, so this is the basic layout structure. But you might figure out what happened. What is the BS row? It's not. It seems it's not a ZK component. Yes, there's no ZK component called BS row. Actually, a custom row, a custom component I defined for this component, for this system, and I defined it with the language add-ons. In language add-ons, you can easily define a new component by just extending the existing component. For example, this is because every div I need to specify two classes. One is row, one is py-1. But I will introduce py-1 later. So in order to avoid every time I need to type myself div as class row, I hope I can reuse this part. So if I don't declare such custom component that I need to do this div as class row pi1, so every time I need to type this for each row. And maybe you think I can copy paste, but sometimes if you want to change something, for example, if I want to add a new class on this div, then I need to modify. For example, there are 6 rows or 7 rows. I need to add 7 rows. Again, if I need to change something during the development, it's frequently changed. So I need to change myself for maybe 6 or 7 rows. But if I put it into a custom component like here, so I can just change once here, and every BS row will also change. Because now I declare the BS row is the div with the S class, and its value is row py-1. So I declare it as a custom component here, so I can use a BS-row in our Zoo. So every time if I want to change something, I just change here. So every BS row in the e-commerce will also change. Okay, so it's a very useful technique that you can reuse or to specify for default value for a specific case. So now you can see here we have 6 BS rows, and we have a column P. We have each row has divided into different columns, and now you can see the n prefix n has namespace native. That means this div is a pure HTML div. It's not a ZK div component. In some case, because we don't need to create a component at server side, we will declare namespace native, so that we can save the memory. Because this div, its purpose or its function just to group. Okay. Some will ask some question about difference imply and include. Okay, then I will answer this question later after I introduce the whole system. Okay, and so there you can see here because I want to save the memory, so I don't use the ZK component div here because it's just a div. I don't need a server-side component to change it. I don't need dynamically change this div. So I just need a client-side div. So that's why I declare a native. So this will be rendered as a pure HTML div and without server-side component, which can save you service memory. Okay. So this is a div and this is span because just a text without. I don't need to change. So I don't use the label. I just use span with Z label. So it will look like label, but it doesn't have any server-side component. Okay, then in each part I separate them to reduce the complexity. I will also suggest you to implement such kind of page. Don't just put whole code into one page because it's hard to debug and hard to modify. So because there are lots of different parts, so I separate different parts into an independent page. So here we have a straightforward revenue report. Each one has corresponding to each part of this page. For example, this is we call straightforward. This we call revenue report. This is sales. So each block or each panels, I separate them into an independent view. So we'll reduce the complexity of this page, and it can also modularize. For example, if you want to change the position of each, for example, you want to change the position of the revenue report and the import.ru. you can just replace these two lines, switch these two lines, and it will change the place, and you don't need to worry about some dependency with this page. So it's very easy to change. Okay. Then after split into these rows and columns, the basic layout is achieved and implemented. Then we can see there is a similar, there are minor class we call P-1. Is also a Bootstrap class. Bootstrap providing several utility class, which is very useful in ZK because it's just a CSS class. You just apply it on div and it just works without concerning about any server-side code. So the P means the padding. So there are 5 different levels of padding. So each one is a proposition to their, there's a spacer in Bootstrap that it's called a spacer. So you can see there are some utilities here. You can see there are lots of different utilities you can use in the Bootstrap. So what I use is as a spacing. So you can see there are margin and padding. So you can easily, there are 5 different, actually, yeah, maybe 6 different levels, including zeros. So you don't need to specify some fine-grained pixel, for example, the 7 pixel or 12 pixel. You don't need to worry about this unless you have very care about the minor pixel, or you just need to specify the level of the padding. So there are P-1, just level 1 padding. So in my case, in default case, you will get 5 pixel padding. So M means margin. So margin M-1 means the margin, 5 pixel margin. So you can just change the padding and margin with the 5 different levels without worry about the pixel value. If I give you a propositional value here, you can see. So you can also control it's a horizontal padding or top padding. So you can, the detail you can check here. There are some options you can use. For example, if you want to specify vertical padding, you can see PY-1. PY-1 means you have a 5 pixel padding on top and bottom. PX-1 means you have padding on left and right, etc. So there are lots of details. I don't introduce them all, just leave you to check. So in our code, I just also use this to control the padding, so it will make our page looks nice. So we can see here, I can use several padding here. Then the next one is to I just mentioned about the column. Then I separate the page, the whole page into separate columns. And also can nest the rows inside row. For example, let's see if you want to create something like this in the manual revenue report. You also, this is the whole row. The manual report and product sales compose the whole rows, and the first one is 7 columns, and the next one is 5 columns. And inside these rows, I can also put row class to help us to lay out these components. For example, from the to the day box, and so that you will you can make it shrink. If you change the size, you also change it format. You will achieve the responsive design like this. So how do we implement it? Let's see the revenue report here. Revenue report. So you can see here, each part actually is a panel. So this is a panel. This is a panel. Children. And inside this panel, children, there's a chart here, and there's a there are some input components. So I separate them into two rows. You can see BS row 1, second BS row. So you can see we separate into two rows. For example, conceptually, it's like this. I separate into two rows. And the first row, the second row is simple. It's just a chart occupies the whole 12 columns. It's a row inside each row. So here, I can use I make this from this label, just consume one column, and this two column, and one column, and two columns. So by applying these columns, I can just lay out these components according to a propositional size instead of a fixed width. Okay, so it will resize it when your screen become narrower. So it's very easy. So you just applied BS row and divide class 1, 2, and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. So this is just a propositional number. It's not pixel. So it can easily survive when your screen become larger or narrow, so that you can. You don't need to specify a fixed width. And some component like daybox, you need to also specify hreflex so that it will grow its size according to its parent as its ZK features. Or the daybox will its width will be a default width, may not fulfill. It will not fill the whole column. So you need to specify hreflex. That means you will fill its parent width. So the ZK will calculate the parent width and define the proper width of this daybox. So you can see if I remove this and I reload the browser, you can see the first daybox will become relatively little smaller. Okay, a bit smaller. Yeah, because it's already. Yeah, because the column width is almost the same with the daybox. And if you don't specify the hreflex, it also does not resize itself. So you can see these daybox will become smaller because I specify hreflex 1. But this daybox, because I removed hreflex 1, so it does not resize. So it's very important. You need to apply hreflex 1. So that's another usage that you can just apply Bootstrap's class into Bootstrap row inside a row, so you can help you to lay out these components. So you can see we can also use this text right to make the button the right alignment. It's very useful utility class. Okay, this is another usage. And then we go to the next topic is about the responsive design for ZK. Because this is just a CSS, so we can just change the cells. You can change the width of the component. But if your component needs to change the style, for example, like the sidebar want to become to collapse when it's very smaller, and it's controlled by components attribute. It's not controlled by a CSS. So I want this to become collapsed. One navigation bar become collapsed here. So this is not controlled by CSS. You need to change the component attribute. So how do we do? We need to use something we call it's like media query. We call it match media. So when we check the sidebar, because I need to control the sidebar, okay, to make it becomes wider or narrower. And in sidebar, I implement by navigation bar. And the navigation bar, there's an attribute, so collapsed here. So you can see here, if the collapse is true, then it will become, when the collapse is false, then it will become wider. When the collapse is true, it will become narrower. So by switching this flag, I can control the navigation bar wider or narrower. But how do I know when the screen size? What is the screen size? What's the current screen size? So I need to tell the browser need to notify me. So there is a notation here we call match media. The match media is the ZK annotation. You can use the media query syntax here. So you can here, apply it to a method. And you can say O and min width. For example, this is when the minimal width is 958 pixels, then you will call this method. So that means it's a wider screen. And the method is very simple, just turn the flag to false. And then you need to notify the collapse is changed. So ZK will reload the collapse flag and it will set the collapse into false so that it will expand the navbar into a wider style. So when the max width is under 957 pixels, you need to know there is a 1 pixel difference. So you will ZK will call this method called denarrow and just turn the flag into true. Okay, so this will achieve this. By using the match media, the ZK will add the listener at client side. The client side will detect the browser width. When it reaches to a certain criteria, you will notify the server, will call your method, and you can do something because you know already some criteria you specify. For example, the width. So you can also you can even do great thing. For example, you can prepare 2 templates. One template could be just a button, and another template could be a complete navigation bar. So when width become narrower, you just switch to the template that contains a button. And when the browser width become wider, you switch to the template that contains the complete sidebar. So you can do a very complete different change when use match media. Not just the size change, you can even change to a different layout, different component when you detect the browser width change. So with this, you can implement the very complicated logic in this method. So maybe you can change some flag, make some component disappear when the screen become narrower. Okay, so this is the another technique that you can use with ZK for responsive design. Okay, then the next one is about to create a custom component like this. You can see here, we just call it state box. This state box is not a ZK component. I just created by post div. So you can just create something like this with ZK's help with HTML. So maybe you have a designer that would create something like this or special layout that you can put it into ZK and make it as a custom component. And it's easy to use. So you can see in our, we call it here, called state board. The state board, you can see here, we render 4 state box. This is a custom component, and we can pass the we can pass the parameter here. So each state box can render different content. And what is the state box? The state box is also defined here. Meta info ZK, I defined in language add-on. So you can see I defined a component called state box. Actually, it's from this path. It's web info template state box rule, and also load some special CSS class for state box. So let's see the state box here. So the state box here, you can see I declare the default namespace is native. That means HTML, because the majority of these elements are just pure HTML. So I just create with div and have some headers, and only one is ZK component because I want to load with data binding. And the HTML components or HTML tag does not support data binding like this. And only support was using EL expressions. So if you want to bind or dynamically bind something from the server, then you need to place it with ZK or and other things just created by HTML tag. So you can save memories and easy to implement. So yeah, you can create such things by a designer. So now you can create div, and I also create this by the help of a Bootstrap class. So you can see I also divide this box into just into one row, and the left part is 8 columns and right part is 4 columns. Okay, so it's very simple. And so you can see there are one row, and the first part is 8 column, and second part is 4 columns. And I add some paddings according to the design. There's some paddings for levels, and there's also some thing can make text black. Okay, and I buy some values from the parameter passed from outside. So this color, state, and also the state. And where is the state? The variable state and variable color and icon. It's a parameter passed from outside. So you can make this state box as a template, and it's actually how it look like is determined by the parameters. So you can reuse this part to render different scenes. I used to render 4 different boxes. So you can see I pass the parameter here. State become the color. Okay, and I use for each is a shadow components. So the for each will traverse the collection object here, and the state I store 4 state objects. So we will render 4 state box here. And each state box I make it occupies 3 columns. Okay, so you will occupy 3 columns with the LG means large screen, and ND means medium screen, and that means the small screen. So when the screen is large, each box will occupy 3 columns, and when it becomes smaller, each box will occupy 6 columns. Then it will become 12 columns. So that's why you can see here, and this is a large screen. So you can see each box consumed 3 columns. Sorry. So 3 multiple 4 is 12 columns. And if I make it smaller, for example, like this, smaller, you can see will change to occupy 6 columns here. So the 6 and 6 is also 12 columns. If I make it even smaller, they will become occupy the whole rows is 12 columns. So this is you can achieve your responsive design by just specifying the CSS class with different level. So it's easy to achieve with ZK, to use Bootstrap with ZK. Okay, so this is the how do you create a state box with your with the ZK data binding and the Bootstrap class. So you can see there's also a converter, so I can convert a number into a percentage. So when you want to change something, you want to render something different format, you don't need to, if it's a number, it's a double, and I want to convert it into a string, so I can use such techniques So that this converter I can reuse this converter to different scenarios, different doubles. So this is how you create a state box. Then, okay. So the next one is about, you can see there is also another box called info box, and it uses similar techniques. So you can see here is an info box, and it just with different div with different DOM structures, but just create a similar box with similar techniques. So you can see the project here that we call info box. It actually is another kind of box. Okay, so that's how you create a custom component here, and you can download the whole project here in the GitHub. You can search the Zkoss -demo, and there's an admin template. It contains the complete source code here, and you can see some details. For example, how do I create what third-party framework I use and how to run. Even if you don't have Maven, you can download and run it. And I also create custom colors with this Bootstrap provided. It's called Themester app. And I also create a custom CSS. So this is basically the overall of these projects. You can see here. Then I will answer the question about what's the difference about the include and applied. Let me open another slide. So you can see a runnable project at GitHub, and there's also an online demo. If you don't want to download, there's an online demo here. You can see online demo. You can just check this project here, or show them, demonstrate to your college. And about the difference between the apply and the include, let me show you another slide. Apply is the shadow components, and so we will suggest you, if you use DKE, please use apply first instead of include. Reason is apply doesn't include corresponding DOM elements, because the apply is just a control component, so it doesn't render anything to the client side. But the include actually is a component, so it still render a div at the client side. Sometimes a div will break your layout. And the second is the apply doesn't consume server memory, because if you just specify a rule, for example, just specify like the sidebar here, like this usage, then it doesn't consume any extra, itself doesn't consume any memory, because it's just like inline component, just pass. Logically, it's just like you pass the sidebar rules content into this part, this position, and that's all. So it doesn't consume some memory. But the include itself is a component, so it itself only still consumes some memory. And apply doesn't create ID space. This is for MVC user. If you develop MVC, include will create ID space. So sometimes you want to select a component inside the include, it will have more troubles. But apply doesn't, just like inject another rule into the current rule and merge as one rule. So apply accepts both template name and the file URL. So you can use the template name, and the file URL usage is just like this, like here I show you. And you can also use the template name like here. For example, you can define template like this. Like this, you can define a template called default or call something like tree, and you can apply template with the name default. So you don't need to separate your template into another rule. You can define in the same rule in any place of this rule because Zk will search it. So you can apply with a logical name here. It's not a place, a path. So that's the benefits, and include only accept the file path. And apply will refresh. It also recreates its content when the parameter change. But include, if you want to reload the page inside include, it's a bit not elegant. You need to set the source, the src attribute into another value and then set it back to original value. Okay, but apply, if you pass the parameter like this, like this. If I pass the parameter like this, if the first one like load, then if the load change, then the Zk will recreate the state box content, so that it's easy to make it reload since if the binding change. Okay. When do you have to include the state apply? Yeah, I think it's currently only if you want to include something like a JSP or something that you need to use include that applies for Zk ZUL. So this is okay. This is basically my today's presentation, and okay, there are some small talk. You can check the small talk here. Maybe I just show you with our website. You can check the website. We have also, this system just presents part of the technique of the responsive design. So you can hear there are different other tips about responsive design. You can check. Just click the documentation and click the small talk, and you can see here there are responsive design in here, and there's also a full small talk here to this group. It also describes what I introduced today. Okay. Here in this small talk, there contains the detail, so we can check the detail later. Okay. So does anyone has any other questions about this? Template system.
Ini kita udah 11 jam.
Just maybe unmute your. Okay, I have a question about template. My template needs a long time load, but when loading the page,
yeah, I can explain it also via voice chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a page that, or on page load, it loads some templates, like number, and I have the problem that one or two templates of these templates need some seconds to load, and I have to wait until all templates are loaded until I can use the page. And I wanted to know if there's an option that the template can render in the background and I can use the templates that are already loaded. Yeah.
Okay. First, you need to determine the long time is consumed by server side or the client side.
It's server side. It's a huge database operation.
Oh, okay. If it's caused by server side, then it could be a trouble. Then you need to maybe query later. For example, you can because it's when you visit the page, if you query the database at the time when you visit, when you create the page, then you will definitely block the user to see the page. So it could be you can fire event. For example, when you visit the page, you do not query the database in, for example, maybe you query do have to compose, not query the database at that moment. Just fire a page, fire events. For example, fire something when, okay, you just use an echo event. An echo event, you can fire for example, on data load, for example, some custom event. And then the echo event will send it back to the client and fire the event you specify. For example, you can fire an echo event at your do after compose, then it will fire on data load from the client side. So the user will see the whole page, but some parts without data. Then page the client will fire on data load. Then at that moment, you query the database and then push the data back.
So that could be a solution. Yeah. I will give it a try.
Yeah. The echo event, you can check the developer reference here. You can call use echo event, something like this. Then you won't block. I think you don't want to block the user seeing the page, right? That's your first.
Yeah, that's my intention.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think this, then you can just let user see some part of it and query database later. It's not okay. Oh, there are lots of questions that you need to check one by one. Is there any way to collapse the navbar without server requests by using Bootstrap rules JavaScript? No, it cannot be, because the navbar collapses the DK components. So there's no way to just using Bootstrap CSS to make it collapse, because it's not just a resize with a different rendering component. So you need to set the component actually to change to collapse the
baru kayak dokumentasinya baru ya itu ya. Udah lama sih.
Reload template programmatically from view model. Reloaded, I think this the simple way just to notify change. If you load it, for example, like this, like our main page, the template is divided into a template URL. So if you want to reload this template URL, then just notify change on property. Now the navigation model coming. So if you bind to another property, just notify the property and the execute will reload it. And the second question, we are using Atlantic theme. How could we introduce Bootstrap in the theme? Okay. I think it's okay because Atlantic theme just control the style, the font size, color. But if you, I'm not sure what do you mean using Bootstrap, because Bootstrap has lots of things, but you're just using GRID system to apply responsive design from Gabriel questions. Then I think it's okay because the Bootstrap CSS class just control the size, the width, and how it resizes itself. So I think it doesn't have too much problem when you use with this Atlantic thing or any other thing, because it just applied the class on div or something like this to change its padding. So I think it doesn't have problems. But if you want to apply something like colors, it might have some problems because the colors might not match the color. So you can find a designer to find a proper color. and how to avoid medical style ID to achieve native mode. Native mode. This is not a. I'm not sure because now default behavior. So I might need to check. Yeah. But maybe currently I'm not aware any feature that can stop this. Maybe need to override some JavaScript or Java code. So, okay, we apply Bootstrap to ZK agree all these bugs. If you just want to control, I have example here. Here, this box, there's a list box, but it's not very easy to apply the Bootstrap inside the list box because the list box has its own way to control the width and the width. So what you can do is just to control the whole width of the list box. So for example, here I just make it smaller here. If I make it smaller, you can see this box just become more narrower. But if there are more columns, for example, if you have 10 columns, either you just make a scroll bar, for example, scroll bar here, or you need to use shadow elements to detect the column, the browser width, and to make it, for example, hide in. For example, if there are 10, for example, there are 10 columns, maybe you need to choose to hide other 6 columns, or you need to render other 6 column information under this. For example, you need to merge those columns. So there are other techniques you need to do, not just by. It cannot be achieved by just apply the Bootstrap class because you need to decide how to do. For example, if there are 10 columns and a 10 column just cannot be displayed in such narrow browser. So you need to decide how do we display those other 6 columns. Either you hide it, either you just merge. Maybe you create 2 templates. One policy is to just hide it. So in the narrow, you just show most important 4 columns, or you just merge those informations into the current 4 columns. So you need to prepare 2 templates. And one is for the wider width, the list box for wider width, and one is list box for narrow width. So maybe you need to create 2 templates with 2 different list box. But beside that, Xtrix plan on a database views was to reside depending on parents. Sometimes, in most cases, it's equal, but the benefits using width 100% is controlled by browser itself, and the edge flag is determined by ZK JavaScript. So some cases, your browser cannot handle width 100%. You can use edge flags 1 because ZK will calculate for you. So it's a bit different. Surely that if you use width 100%, it's less cost because it's controlled by browser itself. Don't need to be calculated by JavaScript. It's normal case. Database JS framework. Database JS framework. I think it's not easy to, because the list box and GREE is very complicated at JavaScript side. So I think it's not easy to integrate with other JavaScript version. It's better to integrate when server side. So if you want to use this box, it's better that you prepare the data at server side and set it to agree on this box. So it's very hard to integrate with JavaScript framework. Or if you just want something like a table-like or grid-like, maybe you just compose by yourself with. Don't use grid, because if you don't need grid's advanced feature, you can compose it by just row and column, like Bootstrap. Because it's just row and column. So maybe you can use for each to render collection with row and columns, and it also look like something like grid, but it doesn't have. You can control your layout by div or style by yourself. It's more easy. So I don't think it's easy to integrate with the JS database. Sometimes first of all, JS is more internal. About the cookie problem, URL rewrite, it might be. I'm not sure it's a ZK question. It seems someone reported this before, but it's not. It's something. I guess something about containers. So it's not ZK. So maybe if you have more detail, please email to info@portis.com so we can check in detail. Maybe there is another detail. So please email to info@zkoss.org. I will send you